The work of the Anunnaki is very hard, but I have a solution. The being we need already exists. We just need to insert our mark on them. We need to imbue them with the essence of the Anunnaki. Let's create a primitive worker. Let us create Lulu, upon whom the tasks of the gods will be imposed. The Anunnaki listened to Enki's words with great surprise and fascination. Who could this mysterious being be? There are creatures in the Abzu, Enki continued. They walk upright on two legs and use their front limbs as arms. They possess hands and live among the animals of the steppes. They consume plants with their mouths and drink water from ditches and lakes. They compete for territory with other creatures. They do not know how to dress, and their bodies are covered in hair. Their heads are as hairy as that of a lion. Enlil was perplexed. He exclaimed, "No creature like this has ever been observed in Eden." Ninmah spoke up. "Long ago on the planet Nibiru, our ancestors might have been similar. It is a being, not a creature. It must be fascinating to witness." Enki proposed that everyone gather at the House of Life to meet these beings. He had already captured several of them, confined within cages. Upon seeing the Anunnaki, the beings stirred. They pounded on the cages, snarled, and displayed aggression. Both males and females could be observed. "They are like us," Enki said. "We come from Nibiru, both male and female, and so are these beings." Ningishzida, my son, examined the essence of their creation. It resembles ours. They possess two intertwining serpents. When our vital essence combines with theirs, our imprint will be upon them. Thus, a primitive worker will be created. They will comprehend our instructions and handle our tools. They will undertake the laborious task of excavation. The Anunnaki will find relief. Enlil took a firm stance. Tools are our servants, not other beings. Slavery was abolished on Nibiru long ago. We cannot proceed with this here. You wish to create a creature and bring into existence that which has never been. The act of creation rests solely in the hands of the Father of all. Enki responded, "They will not be slaves. They will be helpers. This is my plan." Ninmah chimed in, "The being already exists. The plan is to enhance this being's abilities." Enki concluded, "It will not be a new creature. We will fashion them more closely in our own image. With slight modifications it can be achieved. Only a drop of our essence is required." Enlil voiced his concerns. "This is a grave matter, and I do not approve. It goes against the regulations of planetary travel. It has already been prohibited. Our objective is to obtain gold, not to supplant the Father of all." Ninmah replied, "My brother, the Father of all has endowed us with wisdom and understanding. For what purpose did he perfect us if not to make the most of it? We are imbued with the vital essence of wisdom and understanding. It was the Creator of all who bestowed this upon us so that we could utilize it in any manner. Is that not our destined purpose? Is this not our destiny?" Ninurta spoke to his mother Ninmah. "It was with this bestowed essence that we perfected tools, cars, and ships. We destroy mountains with weapons of terror and heal the skies with gold." Let us create new tools with wisdom, not new beings. New tools and no slaves. We will ease the hard work of the Anunnaki, and wherever our understanding takes us, this is our destiny. We cannot prevent the use of the knowledge we possess. Fate surely cannot be changed. From the beginning to the end, it was determined. Is it fate or luck that brought us to this planet to extract gold from the waters? Apparently, the Anunnaki must work on the excavations. And does this negate the creation of a primitive worker? That, my fellows, is the point. The creation of the primitive worker. Is it luck or is it fate? With great doubts, the Anunnaki on Earth decided to consult Anu on Nibiru. A new council was convened, and the elders, sages, and commanders were consulted once more. The discussion was extensive and involved everyone. However, the priority of Nibiru's salvation was paramount. Anu then conveyed the royal decision to the Anunnaki on Earth. Let Nibiru be saved. May the new being be created. Enki asked Ninmah to be his helper, and Ennugi, the chief officer, warned the Anunnaki in the Abzu that work must continue until the new being is created. Meanwhile, Enki led Ninmah to a place of cages among the trees. In the cages, monstrous creatures were trapped. As they observed the hideous ones, Enki explained that the essences of different lives were mixed, and creatures of various species were manipulated through crossing. Enki and Ninmah returned to the House of Life, where Ningishzida explained the secrets of the life essence and how the combination of different essences should be achieved. Ninmah said, "But the creatures in the cages are strange and monstrous." "Indeed they are," replied Enki. "But you are here precisely for that, to achieve perfection." Numerous questions puzzled Ninmah. How many essences should we gather? Which uterus should give birth? Ninmah reflected and reached a conclusion. A smile appeared on her lips. "We need the knowledge of someone who has already given birth, and I possess that." Then, together with Ningishzida, she studied the sacred formulas encoded in objects of science and civilization, known as Emi. Finally, she turned to the cages of monstrous creatures and understood that essences are transmitted through the insemination of a male and a female. The two intertwined strands separate and combine to create offspring. Ninmah thus grasped what was needed. Let an Anunnaki male impregnate a bipedal female. Enki said, "We tried, but it failed. There was no conception." Ninmah said, "Another approach is required to blend the essences. We must not harm the earth. Our essence must be gradually and delicately transmitted through the secret formulas in the ME." Thus, a crystal vessel was used, and an ovule of a biped was fertilized by a seed with the essence of the Anunnaki. The egg was inserted into a bipedal female, and insemination took place, but there was no birth. Just in time, Ninmah made a small incision and retrieved the hybrid. It was a living being, with a hairy body and the upper part resembling earth creatures while the lower part resembled the Anunnaki. They entrusted the creature to his bipedal mother for care and breastfeeding. The creature grew at an unexpectedly rapid pace. A day on Nibiru equated to a month on the Abzu. The Earth Boy no longer made grunts, but his hands did not adapt to using tools. Ninmah spoke. "We must try again and adjust the blend. Let me experiment with the MEs, object formulas encoded with the sciences." Enki and Ningishzida repeated the procedure. Ninmah, equipped with the Anunnaki essence in the ME, took a little from one and a little from the other, inseminating them together with the egg of an earthly female in a crystal vessel. This time, there was a timely birth, and the newborn was allowed to grow into a child in his mother's arms. He bore a greater resemblance to the Anunnaki, with a more appealing appearance and hands seemingly suited for tool use. However, they discovered that the new Earth boy had hearing difficulties and failing eyesight. Undeterred, Ninmah resumed her work and conducted further experiments with new blends. Several inseminations were performed, but various problems arose. One being had paralyzed feet, another had reproductive organ issues, and yet another had underdeveloped lungs. Enki became disheartened, but Ninmah remained resolute in her pursuit of success. Enki interrupted the attempts and suggested, "The problem may lie not in the mixture, ovum, or essence, but in the crystal vessel from Nibiru. Let us employ a vessel made of earthly materials, such as gold and copper, a vessel crafted from clay found in the Abzu." Following Enki's suggestion, Ninmah fashioned a vessel from Abzu clay, molding it into a cleansing bath. She carefully combined an earth female's egg with vital essence extracted from Anunnaki blood. Gradually, she directed the essence using the ME formulas and then implanted the fertilized egg into the uterus of the earth female. Conception occurred, and they only needed to wait for the anticipated time. At the precise moment, the female went into labor, and a boy emerged slowly. Ninmah attentively beheld the newborn child and marveled at its perfection. With her hands, she cradled the infant, while Enki and Ningishzida observed the moment. The three rejoiced. Enki declared, "Your hands have brought forth success." The baby was then entrusted to his earthly mother for breastfeeding, and over the course of months, he transformed into a boy. Though he struggled to speak, his limbs were well suited for labor. Enki contemplated the matter and explored all possibilities. He stated, "Of all the attempts and exchanges we have made, one factor has remained constant. The fertilized uterus has always belonged to a terrestrial woman. This may be the only obstacle hindering complete success." Ninmah and Ningishzida exchanged suspicious glances, and Enki continued, "The only alternative we have yet to try is an Anunnaki womb. To create a being in our image and likeness, it must develop within an Anunnaki." "Wise words," said Ninmah. "Perhaps the correct mixture was inserted into the wrong uterus. But who will be the Anunnaki female to receive the insemination and create the primitive worker? Couldn't there be a monster in her womb?" Enki said, "Let me speak to Damkina, my wife, also known as Ninki." "No," interrupted Ninmah. "I have carefully studied the matter. I've prepared the vessels and mixtures. Let this womb be mine. Let me take that risk." Enki agreed, and he manipulated the mixture in a clay vessel. Then, he inserted the fertilized egg into Ninmah's womb, and conception took place. Labor began earlier than the 9 months on Nibiru, but later than Earth's 9 months. Enki supported the boy with his hands. He was the image of perfection. Enki gave him a little slap, and the newborn cried. He then handed the baby to Ninmah, who lifted him up and exclaimed, "My hands made it! My hands made it!" Ninmah drew the baby to her bosom and provided the nourishing food of life that flowed from her body. The baby thrived and was observed. Enki saw a mother and her child. It was not Ninmah and any other being. The newborn had well-shaped ears, unobstructed eyes, adequate limbs, feet at the bottom, and hands on top. He wasn't hairy like the savages. His hair was dark black, and his skin was smooth. His skin had a dark red tone, and his blood shared the same color. His private parts were different from those of the Anunnaki. The shape was peculiar, with fur covering the front part. Enki said, "Let him be different from us with this front skin hanging from his private parts." Then he continued, "Ninma, this is a being, not a creature. Will you name him?" Ninma spoke, "His name shall be Adamu, meaning like the clay of the earth." A cradle was made for little Adamu, and the Anunnaki discussed in the House of Life. They needed an army of primitive workers, and Adamu was to be the model. He would be treated like a firstborn and protected from labor. He must serve as the mold for future workers. Ninma suggested that the caretakers of her city, Shurubak, be taken to the House of Life to receive the next inseminations. 7 Anunnaki accepted the task. Enki praised their names, and Ningishita recorded them for remembrance. Ninima, Shuzyana, Ninmada, Ninbara, Ninmug, Musardu, and Ninguna. Ninma prepared the 7 clay vessels, extracting the eggs from the female bipeds. She then extracted the life essence of Adamu and placed it little by little into the containers. Through a small incision in Adamu's intimate parts, she extracted a drop of his blood, pronouncing, "Let this be a sign of life. Let us always proclaim that flesh and soul have combined." She squeezed the male private parts to draw blood and added a drop to each container. In the clay mixture, terrestrial and Anunnaki essences would unite. Ninma recited an incantation for the unity of the 2 essences, one from heaven and one from earth, to be brought together. Ningish Zita recorded Ninma's words. Fertilized eggs were inserted into the wombs of the Anunnaki females. There was conception, and the births proceeded as scheduled. Seven Earth males were brought into existence and nurtured by their mothers. They were 7 flawless primitive workers. Let the procedure be repeated, and 7 more primitive workers shall assume the task, said Ningishita. Enki spoke. My son, 7 by 7 will not be sufficient. We require more Anunnaki heroines for this undertaking. Ninma exclaimed, this workload is unbearable. Enki suggested, we must create females. Let them know one another intimately, unite as one and procreate autonomously, enabling them to produce their own offspring. Ningishita needed to modify the ME essence formulas to transition from male to female. Additionally, an Anunnaki womb was necessary to facilitate the creation of females. Ninma, Enki, and Ningishzita exchanged glances. Enki proclaimed, allow me to summon Ninki, my wife, Damkina, so that she may conceive this time. At the House of Life, Ninki became aware of everything that had taken place and her role in it. Agreeing to her responsibilities, Ningishzita adjusted the ME formulas, fertilized an ovum, and Enki implanted it into his wife's womb. Conception occurred, but no birth transpired when the time was due. Months were counted, and it was decided that Ninma would perform a procedure. With skill, she made a small incision and opened the passage. Light filled the room, and the contents of the womb emerged. Everyone was overcome with emotion. It was a female. a newborn girl. Her ears were well formed, her limbs were perfect, and she had hands and feet. She lacked hair and possessed smooth Anunnaki-like skin. Ninmah cradled the girl in her hands, gently tapping her to elicit cries, and then handed her to Ninki for nourishment. Enki declared, "She is not a creature but a being. She bears our image and likeness. Perfection has been achieved. You have provided the blueprint for female workers. What shall her name be?" Ninki, with tenderness and emotion, responded, "Her name shall be Tiamat, which means Mother of Life. She shall be named after the ancient planet from which both Earth and the Moon were created. From the vital essences of her womb, others shall be molded and illuminated. Thus, a multitude of primitive workers shall come into existence." After some time, Ninmah extracted the vital essence of Tiamat and placed it into 7 vessels crafted from the clay of the Abzu, where the eggs of the biped females were already present. She chanted incantations and inserted them into the Anunnaki wombs. In due course, 7 females were born. Enki declared, "Let the males and females become acquainted, and may they give birth to diverse primitive workers. Through their own procreation, offspring will beget new offspring. May they grow and develop together, embracing both male and female aspects." Enki, Ninmah, Ningishzida, and Ninki rejoiced and constructed enclosures, placing them among the trees. Enki continued, "Let Adamu and Tiamat be relieved of their labor. Send them to the Eden to showcase our success to the rest of the Anunnaki." Adamu and Tiamat were directed to Eridu, Enki's city in the Eden. Thus the Anunnaki came to witness them. Enlil found satisfaction in what he saw, easing his discontent. Ninurta and Ninlil also became acquainted with them. Marduk, Enki's son, arrived from the station of Lamu to meet them. It was a remarkable, splendid, and awe-inspiring creation. "You, the creators, crafted this beauty," the Anunnaki acknowledged. "With the primitive workers, our days of toil shall come to an end," they all exclaimed. But not everything went as expected. In the Abzu, beings grew, but maturity took a while to occur. Ennugi questioned Enki about the primitive workers who were slow to grow and reproduce. The Anunnaki complained about the labor. Ningishida created an observation post where males and females could be seen mating, but there was no conception or birth. Enki explained that a curse had been created by combining 2 species. Ningishida pondered and proposed that the essences of Adamu and Tiamat be further observed. Let's study the ME matrices to see what could be wrong. In Shurubak, at the House of Healing, the essences were contemplated. There were 22 branches on the Tree of Life. The parts were comparable, with determined images and likenesses, but they did not include the ability to procreate. Ningishida showed that there was another essence present in the Anunnaki, one for males and one for females. Without this essence, procreation was not possible. These essences were not present in the initial mold of Adamu and Tiamat. Ninmah was worried, and Enki was deeply frustrated. Action was necessary. Information arrived that a new rebellion was being organized by the Anunnaki of the Abzu. Ningishzida, an expert in these matters, had an idea. He secluded himself with Enki, Ninmah, Adamu, and Tiamat in the House of Healing at Shurubak, causing Enki and Ninmah to enter a deep sleep. Then the proceedings began. Ningishzida extracted the life essence from Enki's rib. He inserted the extracted essence from Enki into Adamu's rib, and he inserted the life essence from Ninmah's rib into Tiamat's rib. After suturing the incisions, Ningishzida woke them all up and announced, "It's done. I have added the vital essences of the Anunnaki to the Tree of Life." Thus, Adamu and Tiamat were sent to the Garden of Eden and freed. Both the male and female became aware of their nakedness, and Tiamat covered their private parts to distinguish them from wild animals. Enlil, meanwhile, was walking through the garden when he encountered Adamu and Tiamat. Alarmed by their covered private parts, he summoned Enki to question him. "What is this? Why are their private parts covered?" Enki admitted to Enlil the importance of procreation for them, and explained that the initial creations had failed in this aspect. Enki clarified that Ningishzida had repaired the Tree of Life. Enlil was furious. He exclaimed, "None of this was my will. We should not act as creators. You said the beings we needed already existed. You said we just needed to put our mark on them. You have put the Anunnaki at risk. You have endangered Ninma and Ninki. You have put the caretakers at the House of Healing in danger. And all of this has been in vain. Your work is a failure." And so, as a final act, they offered these creatures parts of our life essence, so that they may be like us in their knowledge of procreation and be bestowed with our life cycles. Enki called Ninma and Ningishida. Ningishida spoke, "My lord Enlil, we gave them the knowledge of procreation. The long life branch has not been added to their core tree." Ninma said, "What choice did we have, my brother? That it all ended in failure? That Nibiru's fate in destruction be found? Or that we make several attempts until Earthlings take over the work through procreation?" Out of Eden, Adamu and Tiamat are expelled from the Eden and go to the Abzu. Enki led Adamu and Tiamat to a garden with trees and allowed them to know each other. Thus, the miracle that Ningishzida had worked on became evident. The couple had twins, a boy and a girl. Ninma also observed the creation. The speed of events on Earth was greater than on Nibiru. Before a Shar had passed, the newborn beings were already multiplying. That's how Adamu and Tiamat had other sons and daughters, and they began to procreate on their own, significantly increasing the terrestrial population. In the Abzu, the Anunnaki were freed from labor. The primitive workers did not complain about the work, the heat, or the dust, nor did they grumble. They worked diligently and enjoyed their food rations. Gold was being sent to Nibiru, and the hole in the atmosphere was showing considerable signs of improvement. The mission on Earth progressed successfully. Among the Anunnaki, there were also marriages and procreation. The sons of Enki and Enlil also had sons and daughters. Although the life cycles originated from Nibiru, time accelerated on Earth, causing the children of the Anunnaki to grow more quickly. Nanar and Ningal had twins and named them Inanna and Utu. Thus, the third generation of Earth-born Anunnaki began. New tasks intertwined with old ones, and they were all divided among the Anunnaki. Everything had changed. The heat over the Earth increased. The white snow zones merged with the water. Vegetation flourished, and wild creatures roamed the land. The rains were stronger, the rivers overflowed, and house repairs became necessary. The shorelines no longer had oceans. Volcanoes spewed fire and brimstone. The ground shuddered, and earthquakes occurred frequently. In the underworld, the place of the white color of snow, the earth rumbled. At the tip of the Abzu, Enki established an observation point and entrusted the world to his son Nergal and his wife Ereshkigal. On Nibru-Ki, Enlil observed the celestial bodies in the Heaven-Earth link and compared their movements with the Anunnaki Tablets. There is a disturbance in the heavens, Enlil said. On Lamu, at the intermediary station, Marduk complained to Enki, his father. Strong winds are disruptive and create irritating dust storms. There are inconveniences in the hammered bracelet. Sulfur fell from the sky on Earth. Asteroids approached Earth violently. Flaming fires blazed in the heavens. Darkness overshadowed bright days, and the devastation caused by storms and evil winds became visible. Stony missiles attacked Earth. Kingu, Lamu, and Earth faced an unknown calamity. On Nibiru, the sages spoke, but their words did not ease the hearts of their leaders. All that was happening in the heavens, within the family of the sun and the celestial beings, Earth being the seventh, was the selection of their positions. Nibiru approached the dwelling of the sun, having lost its way through the hammered bracelet. This marked the beginning of a new celestial battle. Eventually, Nibiru returned to its distant abode in the depths, and the onslaught of rocky projectiles ceased, no longer raining upon Earth and Lamu. During this time, the initial landing had already elapsed 80 shars. Some of the Anunnaki took charge of inspecting the events that had unfolded. Enki then surveyed the foundations of the Earth and concluded that there would be no issues with extracting the vital gold. Ninurta examined the Eden and verified that the landing site remained intact, except for the spilled burning liquids in the northern valleys. Additionally, he discovered sulfuric mists and bitumen. On Lamu, Marduk found a damaged atmosphere and dust storms hindering both quality of life and work. Marduk expressed his desire to return to Earth to his father, Enki. Enlil, in turn, revisited his former plans and reconsidered the cities he had originally intended. He asserted that the intermediary station on Lamu was no longer secure and proposed the construction of a ship port in Eden. "We need a place that enables direct travel between Nibiru and Earth without the need for an intermediary station," he stated. However, Ninurta presented a different idea. He suggested that Bad Tabira, the city under his command, would be the most suitable new launch site for the ships. Enlil conveyed these ideas to Anu, and it was agreed that the new departure and landing point would be in Eden. Thus, gold would be transported from Earth to Nibiru, while supplies and additional Anunnaki would arrive from Nibiru for work. Enki praised the plan but raised a concern. He pointed out that Earth's atmosphere was more appealing than that of Lamu, which would result in the ships expending greater energy to overcome it. Enki proposed an alternative idea, the construction of an intermediate base on the moon. To investigate this possibility, Enki and Marduk offered their services. Anu consented to surveying the moon before establishing a station in Eden. Enki was thrilled. The moon had always captivated him. For several nights he had observed its cold silver disk, finding it to be an astonishing celestial body. Thus, Enki and Marduk journeyed to Kingu. They circled the moon, studying its craters and abysses, immense scars left by celestial battles. Upon landing, they discovered that the atmosphere was inhospitable, necessitating the use of their eagle helmets. Assessing the conditions, Marduk concluded that the place bore no resemblance to Lamu and was unsuitable for constructing an intermediary station. Enki intervened. "Do not be hasty, my son. Can you not perceive the dance in which the sun, moon, and earth partake? Let us stay here to study and analyze. With our instruments, we can measure and appreciate the craftsmanship of the Creator of all. Marduk was persuaded by his father's words. Enki and Marduk made the ship their abode, and they remained there. For 1 Earth year, 3 years passed. They measured the movements across the Earth and calculated the duration of a month. For 6 Earth years, 12 years around the Sun, they measured the Earth year. They recorded how the two interconnected, causing the lights to disappear. They then turned their attention to the paths of Mummu and Lahamu. Enki explained to Marduk that Lamu, along with the Earth and the Moon, constituted the second region of the Sun. There were 6 celestials of the lower waters and 6 celestials of the upper waters, which lay beyond the hammered bracelet: Anshar and Kishar, Anu and Nudimud, Gaga and Nibiru. In total, there were 12. 12 represented the Sun and its family. Marduk asked his father about the recent events. Why were there 7 celestials in a row? Enki contemplated the turns around the Sun and the great turn around it. He considered the positions of the Earth, Moon, and Nibiru to avoid descending into the Sun. He referred to the return as the path of Anu. Father and son watched the stars from the depths. Enki was fascinated by their groupings and drew the images of 12 constellations from horizon to horizon. He did this on the journeys to and from, naming the top row of the path of Anu as the path of Enlil, and likewise designing the path that would bear his name. There were 36 constellations of stars located in the 3 paths. Enki decided to designate them in the position of the Earth when traveling around the Sun. Enki pointed out to Marduk the beginning of the cycle, the measurement of celestial time. He said, "When I arrived on Earth, I named the time leading to the end Pisces. The one that follows, my name, I called it." Marduk remarked, "Your wisdom is fascinating, my father, but on Earth and Nibiru, government and knowledge are separate." "My son," replied Enki, "what are you talking about? What are you missing? I have bestowed all knowledge upon you." In agony, Marduk said, "My father, when the primeval workers were created, you called not my mother, but Ninma, who is the mother of Ninurta, and then they called for Ningishzida, who is younger than I am. Your wisdom about life and death was shared with them, not me." Enki interjected, "My son, you were given the command of the Igigi on Lamu. There, you are the leader." "Father," Marduk said, "you are the firstborn of Anu, not Enlil. However, he is the legal heir, and this place should rightfully be yours. You were the first to land and founded Eridu. But Eridu falls under Enlil's dominion, and your command has been delegated to the distant Abzu. As for me, I am your firstborn, born of your lawful wife on Nibiru. But now, gold accumulates in the city of Ninurta. The survival of Nibiru rests in your hands, not mine. Upon returning to Earth, what will my role be? Am I destined for doom? Will fame and royalty shape my future, or will I face humiliation once again?" Enki embraced his son on the desolate moon and assured him, "What I was deprived of, your future will encompass. My time will align with yours." Following this conversation, new calculations and exchanges of ideas ensued. Enlil, on Earth, felt apprehensive and shared his concerns with Anu. Meanwhile, Enki and Marduk spent countless years on the moon without any sign of their return. "What are they up to? Their actions remain a mystery and their intentions unknown," remarked Enlil. During this time, the situation grew worrisome. The Igigi on Lamu were restless and agitated. Marduk had distanced himself, and the intermediary station had suffered from dust storms, with no assessment of the damage. Everyone awaited a resolution. Enlil emphasized the necessity of constructing the spaceport in the Eden, while Ninurta advocated for its establishment in Bad Tibira. At that moment, Anu proclaimed his sacred decision. Enki and Marduk will return from the moon. We shall listen to their accounts of their discoveries and then make a decision. The news revealed that the moon was unsuitable, leading Anu to decree the construction of a new spaceport. Enki spoke. Let Marduk assume command then. The Agigi no longer require his leadership. Let Marduk guard the entrance of heaven. This responsibility belongs to Ninurta, Enlil angrily retorted. Anu contemplated the situation, recognizing the rivalries between their sons. He then reached a decision. Neither Enlil nor Enki, neither Ninurta nor Marduk, the third generation of Anunnaki, shall bear the responsibility for the spaceport. Utu will be the commander. Let the place be named the Bird City, and let Sipar be its designation. Enlil began preparations for establishing the spaceport. He observed Nibruki and marked out an equal circle for the new location. Command was entrusted to Utu, the grandson of Enlil, as per Anu's decree, the king of Nibiru. Thus, a new era commenced. Anu graced the inauguration, accompanied by the Igigi of Lamu and the Anunnaki from all corners. Inanna performed songs and dances, and it was a grand celebration. The gold was piled high, and a significant delivery was imminent, bringing forth direct supplies of golden salvation. The end of their arduous work drew near. Anu announced that the efforts on Earth might gradually decrease, and some Anunnaki might return to Nibiru. A few more shars of work, and soon they'll be home, he declared. Marduk did not return to Lahmu, nor did he accompany his father to Eden. He desired to explore all lands in his celestial ship. As a result, Utu was appointed to lead the Igigi, some stationed on Earth and others on Lamu. Everyone worked with great enthusiasm, exerting their final efforts to hasten their return. However, in the Abzu, the Anunnaki did not work as diligently. They expressed concerns that the Earthlings were multiplying and could potentially replace them in their tasks. News of this spread throughout the lands, and quickly the Anunnaki of Eden demanded primitive workers. There were 40 shars during which relief from work in the Abzu was granted, while in Eden there was no respite. While Enki and Enlil engaged in argument, Ninurta made an independent decision and led an armed expedition to the Abzu. In the forests, he captured several Earthlings and brought them to Eden. Enki was angered, and Enlil was furious. "You have disregarded my decision to banish Adamu and Tiamat from Eden," Enlil said to Ninurta. "I am preventing further rebellions," Ninurta defended himself. In Eden, the Anunnaki observed with admiration the labor of the Earthlings. These beings were gifted with intelligence and strength, assuming various responsibilities. However, males and females engaged in unrestrained procreation. The Anunnaki were dissatisfied with the available sustenance, as there were no grains or sheep. Enlil's fury intensified. He said for Enki, "May you seek salvation, may you find a solution." Enki took pleasure in the proliferation of terrestrial beings, but also held concerns. The Anunnaki distanced themselves from toil, and gradually the Earthlings became their servants. For 7 shars, the Anunnaki adjusted, but for 3 shars, fish and food were scarce. Both Anunnaki and Earthlings suffered from hunger. In his heart, Enki devised a plan for a civilized humanity. He meticulously observed and studied the new beings during their activities in rivers and forests, during work, copulation, and rest. Enki shared all his observations with his vizier, Izimud. Then, one day, while sailing in a boat, Enki encountered 2 striking young women of wild beauty. Izimud encouraged him, saying, embrace them, and get to know them. Enki offered the ladies fruits and berries from the field, and afterward he embraced, acquainted himself with them, and deposited his life-giving fluid into their wombs. Isimud monitored whether the two would conceive, and indeed they did. Enki instructed Isimud, "Let no one discover what has transpired." In the 93rd Shar since Enki's begetting, the two children were born in Eden. They were nurtured by their mothers and then brought to Enki's dwelling. Isimud conveyed that the two had been discovered among the reeds, thus preserving Enki's secret. Ninki, with affection, took the two children and raised them as her own. The boy was named Adapa, and the girl was named Titi. Ninki imparted knowledge to Titi, while Enki shared everything conceivable with Adapa. Enki confided all his delight to Isimud, proclaiming, "I have brought forth civilized mankind. I have brought forth civilized mankind. They will domesticate sheep and cultivate crops." Enki dispatched a message to his brother Enlil, informing him of the emergence of a new kind of being amidst the desert. Enlil personally journeyed from Nibru-Ki to Eridu. Enki explained that these beings were quick learners and possessed the capacity to transmit knowledge and craftsmanship. "Bring forth seeds from Nibiru for them to sow. Bring forth sheep from Nibiru to populate the earth. Let us instruct this new class of earthlings in agriculture and herding. The Anunnaki and earthlings shall share the same table." Enlil was amazed. In fact, it was incredible. He asked Isimud to confirm, "Did you really find them among the reeds?" Enlil shook his head and contemplated everything with fear and astonishment. He decided to send the news to Anu. Anu was astonished. It wasn't new that one species led to another, but he had never heard of anything like this, the sudden appearance of civilized man on Earth directly from Adamu. Anu pondered whether large numbers would be needed for sowing and herding. Would they be able to multiply? While the sages of Nibiru contemplated the matter, Adapa and Titi met in Eridu. Conception and birth followed, and Titi gave birth to twin brothers. Anu heard the news and sent seeds and sheep to be raised on Earth. He made a decision. Titi should remain in Eridu to nourish and care for the newborns. While Adapa, the earthly one, would be taken to Nibiru. Enlil was not pleased with his father's decision. Who could have thought of such a decision? What would happen when Adapa was taken to Nibiru? He would travel between the sky and the stars, and would be endowed with this knowledge. Then, in Nibiru, he would drink from the waters and eat the food of long life. And then, he would become like the Anunnaki. Enki was scared. His face turned dark after Anu's decision. He agreed with Enlil. Who could expect a decision like this? Ninma was with them. She said, "The sovereignty of our father Anu cannot be avoided." Enki spoke up. "Let's send our young ones to accompany him and see Nibiru with their own eyes. Let Ningishita and Dumuzi be with Adapa to calm and guide him." Ninma agreed. "They are our children born on Earth. Our generation is forgetting the cycles of Nibiru. Its cycles now follow the Earth. Let Enki's 2 unmarried sons travel to Nibiru. They may find brides there." Thus, a celestial chamber arrived from Nibiru in Sipar. Ilabrat, a vizier of Anu, came out of the ship. "I have come to fetch the earthling Adapa," he said. Adapa was called, as well as Titi and the young Kain and Abael. Ilabrat said, "It's amazing how much the earthlings resemble us. They certainly have our image and likeness." Enki introduced his sons, Ningishzida and Dumuzi, and told Ilabrat that he had selected them to accompany Adapa. Anu will be happy to see his grandchildren, said Ilabrat. Enki called Adapa and gave him instructions. He said, Adapa, you will be taken to Nibiru, the planet where we come from, and there you will be received by Anu, our king. In front of him, bow down. Speak only what is necessary and everything you are asked. Offer brief answers. You will receive new clothes and should wear what is given to you. You will be offered bread that is not found on earth. Do not eat it, it is deadly. You will be offered a chalice with a drink. The drink is deadly, do not drink it. My children Ningishzida and Dumuzi will accompany you. Obey their words and you will live. Then Enki called his sons and offered them instructions as well. You will be received by the king my father, and should bow down before him. Do not hide from the nobles and princes. You are equal to them. Your mission is to bring Adapa back to earth. Do not allow yourselves to be enchanted by the delights of Nibiru. After greeting his sons, Enki offered Ningishzida a secret and sealed tablet. He said, Deliver it to my father Anu the king in secret. Then the three headed to Sipar, to the place of the ships, and greeted Ilabrat, entering the ship that soon departed. Dressed in an eagle helmet, Adapa cowered and screamed in fear. He said, The armless eagle is rising. Ningishzida and Dumuzi calmed him down. And then the earth hid in the immense emptiness of the cosmic ocean, and Nibiru appeared in front of it. Upon arrival, they were received with great curiosity. The Anunnaki born on Earth and a being from another world had arrived. In the palace, the nobles formed groups, and in the throne room, princes and counselors were gathered. Ilabrat burst into the hall, followed by Adapa and Enki's two sons. They bowed before Anu. Anu greeted his grandchildren, moved, and with tears in his eyes, he kissed them. Then Dumuzi sat to his right, Ningishzida to his left, and then Adapa was introduced to Anu by Ilabrat. Do you understand what we are saying? Asked Anu. Ilabrat replied, Certainly, Enki taught him. Come here, said Anu. What is your name and occupation? Adapa stood before the king and bowed down. My name is Adapa, servant of Lord Enki. His words caused great astonishment. Anu said, Wonder of wonders achieved on earth. The princes and nobles of the royal hall accompanied him. Let us celebrate then, concluded Anu. Everyone headed to the banquet hall, tables filled with bread and drink, but Adapa did not accept anything offered to him. Anu said, Why did you bring this uneducated earthling here to offer him celestial secrets? Anu turned to Adapa. Why do you reject our hospitality? Why do you not eat or drink? Adapa said, My teacher, Lord Enki, said, Do not eat or drink anything. How strange, said Anu. It was then that Ningishzida approached and handed Anu the secret tablet, saying, The answer may be found here. Anu was confused and worried, so he retreated to his private chamber to open the sealed tablet. He inserted the tablet into the explorer, and the message was revealed. Adapa was born from my seed with an earthly woman. Similarly, Titi was conceived by my seed with another earthly woman. They are endowed with wisdom and speech, but not with the long life of Nibiru. He must not eat the bread or drink the drink. Adapa must return to earth, and his fate must be to live and die there. His descendants will plant and shepherd, and from this will come satiety. Anu was surprised. He did not know whether to laugh or be angry. He called his vizier, Ilabrat, and showed him the message, asking about the rules and what the king should do. Ilabrat explained, Our rules allow for concubines, but there is no clarification regarding interplanetary relations. Ningishzida was called to Anu's chamber. Did you know the content of your father's secret message? Anu asked. Ningishzida lowered his head in response and said, I did not know, but I can guess. I tested Adapa's life essence, and it corresponds to the seed of my father Enki. Anu confirmed that the message was true and ordered Adapa to return to Earth immediately. Anu returned to the hall where the celebrations were taking place and announced, "The welcome shall not be extended. The Earthling shall not eat or drink on our planet. We have already witnessed his amazing abilities. Now let him return to Earth and generate descendants." To ensure his safety, Ningishzida accompanied Adapa and returned with him, carrying the seeds of Nibiru's cereal crops. Dumuzi remained for one shar, and upon his return, he brought the sheep and the essences of the sheep with him. Everyone heard the king's words, and so Adapa and Ningishzida were led to the location of the celestial ships. During the journey, Ningishzida explained to Adapa about the gods, the planets, and the names that were offered. He taught him about the months and how the Earth's year was counted. Upon arriving on Earth, Enki awaited them. He told Ningishzida that everything had happened as expected, except for Dumuzi's stay on Nibiru. Enlil became suspicious of their immediate return and asked for clarification. Ninmah was also called to talk with Enki. That was when Enki revealed to them what had actually happened and the true origin of Adapa. However, he made it clear that he had not broken any rules, but rather ensured satiety. Enlil became enraged. "You did not break any rules, but you have cast the fate of the Anunnaki and the Earthlings." It was then that Marduk arrived in Eridu, called by his mother, Ninki. Enki and Ningishzida decided to hide the truth from Marduk. Marduk was impressed with Adapa and Titi, and soon became attached to the twins, Ka'in and Abael. "Ningishzida will instruct Adapa. Let me be the teacher of the boys," said Marduk. Enlil said, "Let Marduk teach one of them and let Ninurta teach the other." So Ningishzida stayed in Eridu to teach Adapa and Titi. He taught them the sciences of writing and numbers. Ninurta took the first of the twins born to Bad Tibira. It was Ninurta who named him Ka'in, the one who makes crops grow in the field. He taught him to dig irrigation canals, sow, harvest, and plow the land with wooden trees. Marduk took the other brother, whom he called Abael, the one of the wet meadows. Marduk taught him how to build stables to start herding when Dumuzi returned from Nibiru. Thus, Dumuzi brought quadruped animals and the essential seed of sheep from Nibiru. His arrival was a cause for celebration. The leaders gathered to reflect on how to proceed with the new species. Never before was there a ewe on earth. A lamb has never to earth from the heavens been dropped. A she-goat has never before to her kid given birth. Weaving of sheep's wool has never before been established. Enki and Enlil, Ninmah, and Ningishzida decided to establish a breeding chamber, a house of elaboration. And in the Cedar Mountains on the landing place, in a mountain near where Ninmah's elixir seeds were planted, they established the creation chamber. It was there that the multiplication of cereals and sheep on earth began. Ninurta was Ka'in's mentor for sowing and harvesting. Marduk was Abael's mentor for the science of sheep and lamb breeding and herding. Enlil announced, "When the first harvest is made, when the first sheep matures, we will gather in celebration." Guided by Ninurta, Ka'in placed his offering with the first grains at Enki and Enlil's feet. Guided by Marduk, Abael placed his offering with the first sheep at Enki and Enlil's feet. Enlil gave the brothers a joyful blessing and praised their work. Enki hugged Marduk and raised the lamb so that everyone could see it. Then he said, "Meat to eat, wool to wear has arrived on earth." Ka'in's face became dark and saddened. Enki had not given his blessing. Furthermore, Abael claimed that he pleased the Anunnaki, gave them strength, provided wool for their clothes. Offended, Ka'in protested, "I fill the plains that weigh down with grain furrows with abundance. Birds in the fields and fish are plentiful in these regions. The bread of our daily life is produced by me." And so days and nights passed. When summer came, the lands dried up, and there was no rain. Abael took the flocks to Ka'in's fields, so they could drink water from the furrows and canals. And so, brother against brother, the argument took shape once again. Ka'in picked up a stone and struck Abael's head, and he kept striking until the fluid running in his veins began to gush. That's when he trembled. Ka'in cried out, my brother, my... But it was too late. Ka'in stayed by his brother. His soul had already separated from his body. Titi, at a distance, was the first to realize that something was not right. It was a strong feeling. No one had called or warned him. Titi said to Adapa, my heart is filled with sorrow. Something terrible has happened. Adapa and Titi left Eridu and went to the place where their sons were. They saw Ka'in sitting next to his brother's body. Titi screamed in agony and Adapa threw dirt over his head. They yelled at Ka'in, what have you done? What have you done? Adapa returned to Eridu and told Enki what had happened. Enki became furious and confronted Ka'in, saying, cursed, you shall be banished from Eden. You shall not live among the Anunnaki and the civilized earthlings. As for Abael, he must be buried, and I will show you how to do it. 30 days and 30 nights passed. Adapa and Titi were still in pain. Marduk said in anger, Ka'in's action must be punished with death. Let the 7 judges gather, said Ninurta. Marduk did not agree and said, he is not from Nibiru. He does not need the 7 judges. What nonsense is this? Is it not enough that the one trained by Ninurta has murdered the one I trained? Was it not this way that Ninurta defeated Anzu? Let Ka'in receive the same treatment and let his life fluid be extinguished. Enki said, let me talk to Marduk. Enki spoke to his son and told him the secret that had been hidden from him. Thus, Marduk learned about the origin of Adapa and the brothers Ka'in and Abael. Enki explained that a new time had come and that the civilized earthlings could now procreate on their own. Therefore, Ka'in should not be extinguished as well. Otherwise, rebellions would return and satiety would not be achieved. Now Marduk, have pity on Ka'in and do not allow Adapa's lineage to be extinguished. At first, Marduk was furious, but then he laughed. He said, much had been said about your amorous feats. Now I see that it is true. Let Ka'in's life be spared and let him be expelled to the limits of the earth. Thus, Ka'in was taken west with his wife Awan, and Ningishzida altered Ka'in's life essence so that he would be distinct from Adapa's other sons. In this way, Ka'in became beardless. Soon the question arose, without Ka'in and Abael, who would multiply the sheep and provide wool for clothes? And who would plow the land and make the grains grow? Let Adapa and Titi meet again, and let another generation be born, said Enki. In the 95th Shar, Adapa and Titi had a son. Titi named him Sati, meaning one who unites life again. After that, they had 30 sons and 30 daughters. So there were shepherds and farmers. Satisfaction returned to the Anunnaki and the earthlings. In the 97th Shar, Enshi was born, the son of Sati and his wife Azura. His name, Enshi, meant master of humanity. Adapa taught Enshi who the Anunnaki were and what Nibiru was. He knew the cities, observed Nibru-ki, and all the secrets of the Anunnaki. Nanar taught Enshi about perfumed oils, and Ishkur taught him to prepare the elixir of the Inbu fruits. It was from then on that civilized humans began to worship the Anunnaki, who showed and taught them everything. Enshi had a son with his sister Noam. His name was Kunin, he of the kiln. Ninurta was his tutor, and in Bad Tabira he learned about fire, casting, refining, and bitumen. Kunin worked on refining gold for Nibiru. That was the 98th Shar. In the 99th Shar, Malalu was born, the son of Kunin and his half-sister Mualit. Malalu meant he who plays, and Ninurta taught him music, giving him a harp and a flute. From the union of Malalu and Duna, the daughter of his father's brother, his wife Irid was born, the one of fresh waters. Dumuzi taught him how to dig wells and provide water for the flocks, and it was by the wells in the meadows that shepherds and maidens gathered. Marriages and the proliferation of civilized humanity occurred in abundance. The Igigi came to Earth more frequently, and they wanted to stay on Earth and not on Lamu. Thus, Irid met Baraka, his wife, who was the daughter of his mother's brother. On the 102nd Shar, a son was born who became known as Enki-Me. Enki-Me was wise and intelligent. He easily and quickly understood mathematics and had constant curiosity about the heavens and all celestial matters. Enki took a liking to him and revealed to him all the secrets he had previously revealed to Adapa. He explained about the family of the sun and the 12 celestial deities, how months were counted from the moon and years from the sun. He mentioned the Shars in Nibiru and how calculations were made. He also demonstrated how he divided the circle of the heavens into 12 parts and how the eras were arranged, how the 12 great Anunnaki were honored in the eras. Enki-Me was curious and eager to explore the heavens. He took 2 celestial journeys. In the first, Enki-Me went to the moon with Marduk, who taught him everything he knew. When Enki-Me returned to Earth, Utu gave him a tablet to record what he had learned. Utu offered Enki-Me his shining abode like a prince of the earth. The rites of priesthood were taught to Enki-Me. Later, in Sipar, he met his wife, a half-sister named Adini. Thus, a son of Enki-Me and Adini was born, and he was known as the one who rises among the shining waters. Matushal was born on the 104th Shar and witnessed the problems with the Igigi and everything Marduk was doing. After the birth of Matushal, Enki-Me traveled to the heavens for the second time with Marduk to visit the Igigi on Lamu. The Igigi talked a lot and were able to learn about civilized earthlings. It is said that after ascending to the heavens, Enki-Me never returned. But before leaving, he offered a written record so that his children would know everything he knew. He recorded the family of the sun, the regions of the earth, and the rivers. He entrusted Matushal, his firstborn, along with his brothers Ragim and Gaidad, with the knowledge of everything. Matushal met his wife Ednat and had a son named Lumak, a powerful man. The Anunnaki chose Lumak to be the overseer and that he should work to enforce quotas and reduce food rations. Those were the most difficult days, and the workers in the fields and meadows complained. And it was during the days of Lumak that Adapa, the first civilized man, met his mortal destiny. On his deathbed, he asked that all his children and his children's children be called. Adapa wanted to bless them and speak to them before departing. When Sati and all the others gathered, Adapa asked about Kayin. Enki called Ninurta and said, "Let the banished one whom you mentored be brought to Adapa's deathbed." Ninurta flew on the bird of the sky to the land of the wanderers. He searched for Kayin, and when he found him, he brought him to meet Adapa, his father. When Kayin arrived, Adapa asked him and Sati to come closer. With his failing vision, Adapa touched their faces and noticed Kayin's beardless face and Sati's bearded face. Adapa placed his right hand on Sati's head and said, "The earth will be filled with your offspring, and from your seed, like a tree with 3 branches, humanity will survive a great calamity." He placed his left hand on Kayin's head and said, "Because of your sin, you are deprived of your birthright. But from your seed, 7 nations will come. They will grow in a separate kingdom and dwell in distant lands. But because you killed your brother with a stone, your end will come by a stone." After Adapa finished speaking, he dropped his hands and said, "Now call Titi, my wife, and all my sons and daughters. And when my spirit leaves me, take me to the place near the river where I was born, and leave me with my face towards the rising sun." Titi cried and fell to her knees beside Adapa. He was born in the middle of the 93rd Shar and passed away at the end of the 108th. It was a long life for a mortal, but he didn't have the life cycle of Enki. After Adapa's farewell ceremony, Cain said goodbye to his mother and brother. He had sons and daughters in a distant kingdom, and he built a city for them. While building it, he met his destiny, as predicted, with the fall of a stone. During Lumok's time in Eden, he served the Anunnaki as a foreman. In those days, the Igigi saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and took them as their wives. During Lumok's time, Marduk and the Igigi married earthlings. Those were difficult days. On Lamu, dust and aridity enveloped the planet. The Igigi were restless and asked Marduk to keep the passage station in Lamu until it was possible to understand what was happening. On the sun, eruptions were detected and shook the gravitational network of Earth and Lamu. In Abzu, in front of White Earth, Nergal and Ereshkigal were appointed to install observation instruments. The Anunnaki who decree fates, the sons of Anu who are on Earth, Enki, Enlil, and Ninmah gathered to decide. The years of Earth and the Shars of Nibiru weighed on their eyes and their bodies. Each of their features had changed a lot, and they all noticed. Enki had a tired and old look, and he was the first to speak. More than 100 Shars have passed since my arrival. I was an elegant leader, and now I am a bearded, tired, and old man. And I, said Enlil, was an enthusiastic hero willing to lead and venture. Today I have children who have children, all born on Earth. We are older, but those born on Earth will be even older in a short time. Ninmah, saddened, said she had been called an old sheep. Enlil added, other Anunnaki have been coming and going all this time, and we, the leaders, had to stay all the time. It may be time to leave. Enki replied, I have wondered about this a lot. Every time one of us three wishes to visit Nibiru, words of hindrance come to us. Enlil added, what is happening? Any problem on Earth or in Nibiru? Ninmah replied, this may have to do with differences in life cycles. The three of them decided to wait and see what would happen. Shortly thereafter, Marduk approached his father Enki with a matter of severe gravity. Father, Enlil's 3 sons have married. Ninurta with Ba'u, daughter of Anu, Nanar married Ningal, and Ishkur married Shala. Your son Nergal has married Ereshkigal, Enlil's granddaughter, forcing consent after threatening to take her life. Nergal did not wait for his espousal despite being his firstborn. Now it's my turn, father. I want a wife. I want to choose a bride. Enki smiled and said, your words make me happy. Your mother will be too. Marduk raised his hand to interrupt such happiness. Enki asked, is it one of the young women who heal and give aid? Marduk said, she is a descendant of Adapa, a terrestrial, not from Nibiru. Enki was speechless and looked bewildered. A prince of Nibiru, a titled firstborn for succession, marrying a terrestrial? Not just any terrestrial, but his own descendant, Marduk said. Her name is Sarpanit. Enki brought the matter to his daughter, Alalu's wife, Damkina, also known as Ninki, Lady of the Earth. Marduk explained, on one of the journeys I took with Enki to the heavens, I witnessed with my own eyes something my father had told me. Step by step, we created a being like us, here on this planet. It was when he was explaining to Enki about heaven and earth that one of his daughters captivated me. Ninki pondered her son's words. And does this young woman appreciate your gaze? She asked. Certainly, Marduk said. Enki raised his voice. This is not a matter to be considered. If our son were to do this, he could never go to Nibiru with his wife and would forever lose his rights as a prince of Nibiru. Marduk smiled bitterly. My rights over Nibiru are non-existent. Even on Earth, my rights as firstborn were trampled upon. This is my decision. From Prince of Nibiru to King of the Earth, I will be the Lord of this planet." "So be it," said Ninki. "So be it," said Enki. Enki then told his brothers, Enlil and Ninmah, of Marduk's decision. Both were horrified. Enlil said, "It's different for the father to have relations with the Earthlings and for the son to decide to marry one of them." Ninmah said, "He could marry a half-sister as is the royal custom." Enlil conveyed the news to Anu on Nibiru. Anu said he could not consent. In the rulebooks there was nothing on this matter. He called upon the advisors and the wise men. They explained that Adapa, the progenitor, could not stay on Nibiru. And so, if Adapa could not stay on Nibiru, Sarpanit, his daughter, would also be prohibited from going there. And Marduk also could not go to Nibiru. Some sages and advisors said that Marduk was accustomed to the life cycles of Earth, and that even without Sarpanit, he could possibly never visit Nibiru. By mutual agreement, Anu confirmed and decided to communicate the decision to the Anunnaki on Earth. Marduk can marry, but he will no longer be a prince of Nibiru. Enki, Enlil, and Marduk agreed with the decision. Ninki said, "Let us celebrate the wedding, and let the party be in Eridu. I myself will prepare the celebration." Enki added, "Let us make a gift. Let us designate for them a domain far from Eden in other lands." Enlil thought for a moment and asked, "What land and what domains are you talking about?" Enki replied, "A domain above Abzu, in the land that reaches the upper sea. It is separated from Eden by the waters and can be reached by boats." Enlil consented, saying, "So be it." Thus, the celebration took place in Eridu. The celebration was grand, and the number of gifts was also. To the sound of 7 tambourines, the bride's sisters presented the wife. It was a great gathering of civilized Earthlings. For them, the wedding was a coronation. Young Anunnaki were also present, and the Igigi of Lamu came in great numbers to witness the union between Nibiru and Earth. 200 Igigi were present at the wedding celebration of the Lamu leader Marduk. But Enki and Enlil did not know the true intention of the Igigi. The Anunnaki leaders on Earth did not know why there were so many Igigi and what was happening. It was on Lamu, before the celebration, that a crowd gathered. Among the workers, one of the Igigi had taken the lead and raised his voice before the others. His name was Shamgaz. And what Shamgaz did was represent what the Igigi felt. Enough of suffering and loneliness. If the leader Marduk could, they also had the right. They wanted to have Earth's women for themselves. They wanted to marry and have children. They called the Earthlings Adapite females, Shamgaz said. "Come and let us choose wives among the Adapite females. Let us generate sons and daughters in them. And if there is punishment to be imposed, I alone will assume it for all of you. And even if none of you accompany me, I will take action alone." One by one, the Igigi gathered and made an oath. And so 200 of them arrived at Marduk's wedding, descending through the landing place. They arrived at the great platform on the Mountain of Cedars, and from there they traveled to Eridu with a crowd of Earthlings. And it was at the end of the union celebration between Marduk and Sarpanit that, by a previously agreed signal, Shamgaz alerted everyone else. And the Igigi, each of them, took an earthly maiden, and they went with them to the Mountains of Cedars in the landing place. They gathered in a fortress and sent their words to the Anunnaki leaders. Enough of deprivation and not having offspring. We want to marry the Adapite women. You must bless this desire, otherwise we will destroy everything on Earth with the power of fire. The Anunnaki leaders were scared. They told Marduk that he should take care of the situation. And Marduk said, "If I have to seek a solution, my heart will be in agreement with the Igigi. I cannot forbid them what I have done myself." Enki and Ninmah reluctantly agreed. Enlil was furious. "Our pride and our sacred mission have been abandoned. By our hands, this planet will be invaded by crowds of earthlings. One wrongdoing was followed by another. Enki started it, Marduk continued it, and now they are an example for hundreds of Igigi." Enlil continued with much displeasure. "Let it not be on earth, let them be let out." Marduk spoke. "On Lamu the situation is unbearable and survival is not possible. This is a fact that we all know." Enlil said angrily, "They will not stay in the Eden. They cannot stay in the Eden." And after his words, he left annoyed. In his heart, Enlil plotted things against Marduk and the Earthlings. And so, for some time, on the landing platform, next to the Cedars Mountains, the Igigi were isolated with the earthly women, descendants of Adapa. And soon, the first children were born. They were called children of the spaceships. Likewise, Marduk and his wife Sarpanit also had children. The first two were named Asar and Satu, and as previously agreed, Marduk and Sarpanit were granted domains above the Abzu. And to accompany them, Marduk invited the Igigi to live in 2 cities he had built for his children. Some of the Igigi accepted, others did not. Some Igigi and their children arrived in the domains of the Dark Land, while Shamgaz and others stayed on the landing platform in the Cedars Mountains and extended their domains to the lands of high mountains far to the east. Meanwhile, Marduk increased his own strength among the Earthlings, and in those days Ninurta asked his father Enlil, "What are Enki and Marduk plotting?" To which Enlil replied, "The earth will be inherited by the Earthlings." And he continued telling Ninurta, "Go and meet the descendants of Cain, and with them prepare your own domains." Thus, Ninurta, son of Enlil, met the descendants of Cain, and with them established a new land and a city with towers. Ninurta taught the descendants of Cain how to make tools and interpret music, showed them mining techniques, refining and casting. He taught them to build balsa wood boats so they could cross a great sea. It was a domain beyond the seas, not the mountainous land of the new Sky-Earth link. They were the domains of Ninurta, of the Enlil clan. Those were the days of Lumak, also a descendant of Adapa. In those days, Lumak was still the overseer who reduced the rations of the Earthlings in Eden. And Lumak married Batanash, the daughter of his father's brother. Enki asked Marduk, his son, to take Lumak to his domains to teach the Earthlings how to build a city. And so, Marduk called Lumak to his lands. But this was an unusual request with a clear purpose. It turns out that Batanash, Lumak's wife, was stunningly beautiful. And one of the great Anunnaki was enchanted by such beauty. Enki intended to have Batanash in his arms. And so, to protect Batanash, who was left alone in Lumak's absence, Enki engineered her trip to Shurubak in the city of Ninmah, the refuge city. And after this, Enki went to Shurubak to visit his sister. And Batanash was bathing when Enki found her, and having found her, he had intimacy with her. Knowing her, pregnancy soon followed, and warnings were given to Lumak to return. Thus, a boy was born, and this shocked everyone. Lumak held him in his arms and could not understand what he saw. The boy had white skin like snow, hair the color of wool, and his eyes were like the sky, bright and shining. "I'm confused," said Lumak. "He doesn't look like an earthling." Matushal, Lumak's father, also met the boy and demanded the truth from Batanash's words. "Is he the son of one of the Igigi?" And Batanash said, "None of the Igigi is his father." Matushal calmly put his arm around Lumak's shoulder and said, "The boy is a mystery, but a strange omen has been revealed. He is unique and has been chosen by destiny for a unique task. What that task is, I do not know, but at the appropriate time it will be known. May the son who was born, strange as he is, be an omen that rest is coming." During the days of Lumak, times were tough. The days were colder, and the skies were devoid of rain. Harvests dwindled in the fields, and there were few lambs in the pens. Batanash, the mother, did not reveal her son's secret to Matushal or Lumak. Ninma granted the boy her support and affection. Enki adored him greatly and taught him to read Adapa's writings. The boy, still young, learned to observe and perform the priestly rituals. It was the 10th Shar, and the boy was called Zusudra, the one with long and bright days of life. He grew up in Shurubak, and there he met Emzara, whom he married and had 3 children with. In those days, suffering on Earth had intensified. Plagues and famine were being felt. Humans and Anunnaki suffered from the recent events, and in those days, the Anunnaki feared for their own safety and for everything happening on Earth. In the eyes of Enlil, the mission of the Anunnaki on Earth had become perverted. For him, the noisy and strident masses of Earthlings had become an anathema. Enlil said that the Earthlings' declarations were oppressive and that their unions kept him awake at night. Ninma interceded on behalf of the Earthlings, saying that it would be useful to teach them how to heal themselves so that they could medicate themselves, but Enlil did not respond positively to her pleas. In the lands where Earthlings lived and proliferated, waters did not grow in their sources, and the earth had closed its belly. It was the vegetation that did not sprout. Enki also pleaded to be able to teach fishing and sustenance from the seas, to which Enlil also prohibited by decree. Over time, hunger and diseases increased. During one Shar, the Earthlings ate the herbs of the field, and so the second and the third Shar also arrived. It was Enlil's revenge. Zayusudra, the spokesman for the Earthlings, traveled to Eridu and called for Enki, his lord. He pleaded for help and salvation, but Enki was unable to take any action due to Enlil's decrees. In those times, even the Anunnaki feared their fate. Their own rations diminished, and the changes that occurred also affected them. Both on Earth and on Lamu, the seasons had lost their regularity. For 2 Shars, they studied the celestial movements of Nibiru. Strange events were taking unknown paths. Something was happening around the sun and its family. Kishar had lost its host, and the sculpted bracelet was stretched and pushed by invisible forces. In Nibiru, the wise men sounded the alarm. They said that the creator of all was returning the heavens to primitive days. Some voices among the people rose to say that the creator was angry. On Earth, the tribulations increased while fear and hunger spread. Nergal and Ereshkigal observed the instruments in front of the White Land. There were 4 Shars of observation. They detected tremors and earthquakes, and they realized that the White Land had started to slide. The words about the fact were sent to Enlil and addressed by him to Nibiru. And so came the 5th and the 6th Shar. And there, on the planet of the Anunnaki, the wise men also observed and sounded the alarm once again. They told King Anu that the next time Nibiru approached, the earth would be exposed and the ice and snow on the surface of the white land would slide, causing a calamity of water. The wise men said that the land would be engulfed by a gigantic wave. It was a flood approaching. In Nibiru, the consternation was great. The insecurity in the face of Nibiru's own fate was frightening. What would happen? The king, the wise men, and the counselors were concerned. In Abzu, the gold mines were closed, and the Anunnaki left for Eden. In Bad Tabira, the smelting and refining also stopped, and all the gold that was there was hastily sent to Nibiru. Ships departed from the planet of the Anunnaki towards the Earth, preparing for a rapid evacuation. And it was in one of the ships that arrived on Earth that a white-haired Anunnaki presented himself. With majestic steps, he demonstrated a sealed message from Anu to the Lord of the Command on Earth. Enlil received the message and observed that Anu's seal was intact and authentic. Enlil was surprised. In Nibru-Ki, he read the tablet's message and observed that the coding was entirely trustworthy. The Anunnaki who arrived was called Galzu and spoke on behalf of the king and the council. Anu's message said, "Galzu's words are my orders." Galzu was from the same school as Ninma, but he appeared much younger. Ninma said she didn't remember him. Besides, she seemed like an old crone compared to him. The explanation was simple, and part of his mission on Earth, Galzu revealed. The cause is the winter sleep cycles, but it's not just that. There is a secret related to evacuation. Since Dumuzi was in Nibiru, the Anunnaki who returned were examined. Their bodies were no longer accustomed to Nibiru's cycles. Their sleep was disturbed, their vision was failing, and Nibiru's network of power weighed heavily on their steps. Their minds were affected, and their children were older than their parents. It was observed that those who stayed on Earth for longer were the most affected upon returning. Death came quickly to the returned, said Galzu. And I'm here to warn you. Enki, Enlil, and Ninma remained in a somber silence. And Ninma was the first to speak. As expected, she said. Enki, the wise one, agreed with her words. It was evident. Enlil, however, was filled with anger. Before, the Earthlings were becoming like us, but now we are becoming like the Earthlings. We will be trapped on this planet. The entire mission has turned into a nightmare. With Enki and his Earthlings, we will end up being their slaves. Galzu listened to everyone with compassion, including Enlil's explosive outburst. Then he said, "Indeed, there is much to reflect upon." Deep questions were raised in Nibiru. Should we have perhaps left Nibiru to its own fate? Or was the arrival on Earth conceived by the Creator of all? Perhaps we, the Anunnaki, were nothing more than unconscious emissaries of the entire mission and plan of the Creator of all. The debate on this matter, my friends, will continue, but I want to tell you the reason for my arrival and Nibiru's secret order. The three of you must stay on Earth, and you will only return to Nibiru towards death. As you wait for the great calamity, you must encircle the Earth and wait. The Igigi who married Earthlings must choose between leaving or staying with their marriages. No Earthling, including Sarpanit, will be allowed to travel to Nibiru. Those who wish to stay to observe their fate must protect themselves inside the celestial ships. As for everyone else, they must be prepared to depart for Nibiru immediately. In light of Galzu's words, Enlil called a meeting in Nibru-Ki. Thus, the Anunnaki commanders, their children, and the Igigi gathered. Enlil spoke and told them about the secret of the imminent calamity. Our mission on Earth has come to a bitter end. Those who wish to leave in celestial ships stop for evacuation. Those who have married Earthlings will have to go without their wives. Those who wish to stay must lead their wives and descendants to the highest peaks of the Earth. And for the Anunnaki who decide to stay, they should find a place in the celestial ships that will remain outside to witness the fate of Earth. As commander, I will be the first to stay. The others decide for yourselves. Ninurta spoke up. I will stay with my father and face the calamity, and after the flood passes, I will return to the lands beyond the oceans. Nanar, Enlil's eldest son on Earth, announced that he wished to await the flood on the moon. Enki had a strange expression on his face. Enlil, perplexed by what Nanar had said, nevertheless agreed. Ishkur declared that he would stay on Earth with Enlil. Utu and Inanna, Nanar's children, declared their desire to stay as well. Enki and Ninki proudly announced that they had chosen to stay and not abandon the Earth. Marduk angrily said, I will not abandon the Igigi or Sarpanit. Thus, one by one, the other sons of Enki announced their decision to stay. Nergal and Gibel, Ninagal and Ningishzida, as well as Dumuzi. So everyone turned their attention to Ninmah, who also proudly revealed her decision to stay, announcing, My whole life is here. The Earthlings are my creatures. I will not abandon them. Upon Ninmah's words, the Anunnaki and Igigi asked, What will become of the Earthlings? To which Enlil replied, The Earthlings, with all their abominations, let them perish. Enki shouted in response, A strange being was created by us, and we must save him. Enlil also shouted, On every occasion you have modified decisions. You gave procreation to the primitive workers, endowed them with knowledge. You took in your hands the powers of the Creator of all, only to soil yourself with abominations. You conceived Adapa through fornication. You gave understanding to his lineage. You raised his descendants to the heavens, sharing our wisdom with them. You broke all the rules, ignored all decisions and orders. Because of you, an earthling brother killed another. Because of your son Marduk, the Igigi imitated him and married earthling women. No one knows who is the Lord of Nibiru and to whom the earth belongs. Enough. That's all I have to say. Enough! The abomination must not continue. Let what will happen, happen. And so, let everyone take an oath, and let everyone swear not to intervene in events. Enlil, in the council of the Anunnaki and Igigi in Nibru-Ki, demanded an oath from everyone. The first to swear the oath was Ninurta. And from Enlil's clan, everyone did so. Next, Enki's sons spoke up. Nergal bowed in respect. Marduk told Enlil he agreed, but questioned what the point of the oath was. If the Igigi abandoned their wives, wouldn't fear be spread among the Earthlings? Ninmah was in tears, and whispered weakly the words of the oath. Enlil stared fixedly at Enki. Why do you want to bind me to an oath? Enki questioned. The decision is yours, and on Earth it is a command. You want to make it seem like a mere chance? Let it be known as Enlil's decision, and let the responsibility fall on Enlil forever, Enki announced. And having said these words, Enki left the assembly. Marduk went with him. Turmoil erupted, and quickly Enlil brought order with swift words of command. Next, the organization began, and as was natural, Enlil, being a skilled commander, coordinated the activities. The first to depart were those who would return to Nibiru. And it was not one or two, but several ships that left. Next was the turn of Marduk and the Agigi with their earthling wives. Marduk gave them a choice, to go with him, Sarpanit, 2 sons and daughters to Lamu, and wait there for the end of the calamity, or to disperse into the distant mountainous lands of the earth to find refuge. Enlil counted those who stayed and assigned ships to them by groups. Then he ordered Ninurta to go to the mountainous lands beyond the oceans to report on the rumbling of the earth. Continuing on, Nergal and Ereshkigal were tasked with monitoring the White Earth. Enlil assigned his son Ishkur to watch out for any advances by the Earthlings. His mission was to prohibit access and to raise and reinforce barriers and locks. The celestial ship place, Sipar, was the center of all preparations. It was there that Enlil established the temporary heaven-earth link and conducted the destiny tablets that came from Nibruki. Enlil explained to Enki that the tablets of records should be buried in the depths of the earth in Sipar, so that in the future, what was done on one planet could one day be discovered on another. Enki approved his brother's words and stored the Emi and other tablets in golden chests. And so, in the depths of the earth, they were buried in Sipar for posterity. With everything arranged, the leaders waited for the signal to depart. And they watched with apprehension as Nibiru approached on its great return. The signs were clear. The signs in the heavens revealed that the hour was getting closer and closer. It was at this moment that Enki addressed his sister, Ninma, turning his attention to the other living creatures. He said, Enlil directed all his concern towards the Earthlings, but he forgot about all the other living creatures. When the flood inundates the earth, all creatures will be condemned, including those whose seeds of life came from Nibiru. Let's preserve the seed of life. Let's extract their vital essences to protect them. I will do this in Shurubak, said Ninma, and you will do it with the living creatures of Abzu. So while the others waited anxiously, Enki and Ninma undertook a challenging task. In Shurubak, Ninma had the assistance of some of her assistants. Enki had the help of Ningishzida in Abzu, in the ancient House of Life. They collected the male and female essences as well as the eggs of life. Thus, in pairs, males and females, they preserved them in both Abzu and Shurubak. And then the trumpet sounded and the alarm went off. Ninurta announced, "The thunder on earth is terrifying." From the white earth, Nergal and Ereshkigal declared, "The white earth shook." In Sipar, in the celestial ship place, the Anunnaki gathered to wait for the flood, and it was at this moment, as the tension of the wait grew, that Enki in his abode fell asleep. And in a dream vision, a bright and radiant man like the sky appeared to him. In the 10th tablet, this man will reveal the will of the Creator of all so that Enki can save humanity,